Good morning, mayors and guests. If you are able, please stand and remain standing for the presentation of colors by the Kansas City Police Department Color Guard. To sing our national anthem, please welcome Nicole Gregory.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may be seated. To give our invocation, please welcome the Imam of the Al-Inshura Islamic Center, Bilal Haziz.
With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. The praise is for God, the Lord of all the systems of knowledge and the sustainer of the worlds. We seek his help and his aid. We witness he is one for all people and for all creation. Highly glorified is God, the creator of everything, the one who gave us life. He is the life giver. God, we're thankful to you for your mercy, for allowing us to be created in such a wonderful human form and creating us with a mind and an intellect to go into your creation and to extract things that will be beneficial for our life and to enjoy life here in this material world, both with our bodies and with our minds, or with our material life and our spiritual life. We thank the Most High for blessing us to come out today for this special occasion. Oh God, by my best petition and invocation, I ask for success for our leaders who are coming together on behalf of their respected communities and cities to come together for the betterment of society and our nation. You have said in your scripture, let there arise out of you a band of people inviting all that is good and enjoying what is right. Bestow on these great leaders wisdom and guidance, seeking the best and giving the best of their communities. No matter any differences, whether it be ethnicity, religion, culture, background, economic status, political views, we acknowledge that we are one single brotherhood and sisterhood. Our Lord, you have said that you made us into different nations and tribes that we can come together to know and learn from one another, not to despise each other. Guide the leaders of this nation who have been given a great responsibility. God, give us direction from you. May we always have a deep care for human concerns to form a better society, a better nation, and ultimately a better world. And may we always have a concern for the oppressed all over the world. May your hands be forever on us as leaders. May we restore peace in our cities and around this country. And with this peace comes an obligation for us all, an obligation for us to work towards peace, keep the peace, and maintain the peace in our lives as one human family. Our Lord, please help us to restore peace, build stronger communities, and unite us among one human family as servants of God. Our Lord, we cannot manage this life by ourselves without you. Make of this life what you want it to be, what you prefer it to be. Our Lord, do not allow us to act on our own. Only allow us to help act to obedience to you. We hear and we obey. Forgive us. We're asking for your forgiveness. Give us good and excellence in this world and in the next, good and excellence, and save us from the fires of sin. May God's peace be upon us all. Amen.
Please welcome the CEO and Executive Director of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Tom Cochran, and Membership Director, Nan Whaley.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to welcome our host mayor, Quentin Lucas. But before we welcome him, I would like to welcome Quentin Lucas Jr. into this world, who was born just a few days ago. And I have Nan Whaley, our membership director, past president of this organization, to make a special presentation to him. So let's bring out our host mayor, Mayor Quentin Lucas of Kansas City.
Lucas, we are so excited. You are doing a fantastic job hosting us. Most all mayors are amazed at your ability to have a baby with your wife and 2 days later stay out so late as you did last night. Your wife is a saint, clearly.
Very much.
But we wanted to make sure that your baby is well dressed, and so we have the U.S. Conference of Mayors future mayor onesie for little Quentin.
Thank you all so much. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Well, how are y'all doing this morning? So I once had the opportunity to have a friend who visited me, and he said, Quentin, I'm coming to Kansas City, and I'm going to have barbecue for every single meal. And so that meant one breakfast. I'm like, what are you warming up right now? And he says, some more barbecue. So I hope all of you are getting enough barbecue, enough good food during your time in Kansas City. We are elated to have you all here. And as was just noted by Nan and Tom, my baby was so excited about this conference, he made sure he was born right before so that there was just an off chance that he could attend. In case you're wondering, wife and baby are doing very well, but thank you so much. Thank you so much. And my wife has indulged me the opportunity to spend time with you. We are thrilled to have you in Kansas City. Whether it was the opportunity to experience our brand new KCI terminal, or if it's this wonderful hotel in downtown Kansas City, this is a city that continues to change for the better. And a lot of that is based on our collaboration with the United States Conference of Mayors. This weekend and this week, we're having the opportunity to discuss tough and challenging issues: homelessness, violent crime, immigration, and more. But I know that we, as America's mayors, are solving those issues and are addressing them head on each day. I want to say thank you more than anything for coming to Kansas City, but I also want to thank you for the years of collaboration when I have dealt with challenges and triumphs, winning Super Bowls, but also dealing with tragedies thereafter. You, as mayors, are people who have worked closely with me and worked closely with each other to make sure that while there may be certain partisan fractures, bipartisan challenges in Washington or our state legislatures, you're the ones who get things done. So I am at this conference today exceedingly proud to be a mayor. I'm exceedingly proud of the city in which I'm a mayor, but I'm also very thankful. Thankful, of course, for the blessings and the health of my family, but also thankful for all of you, America's mayors and America's leaders, who each day help build a better country and better communities for all of us. Thank you. Spend lots of money in Kansas City. And as Nan noted, make sure you make every conference event like I did last night. If you don't have a newborn baby, you ain't got an excuse. Thank you all and have a wonderful time in Kansas City.
Please welcome the 81st President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Reno Mayor Hillary Sheevey.
How's everyone feeling? Oh, come on. We all stayed up too late last night. You know it. How are you feeling? Okay, any mayor that's supposed to be here that didn't make it? Come on. Let's call them. Get your phone out. Mayor Barnett, come on. No, I'm serious. You don't, seriously, I'll do it. I'll even call your mom. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a wonderful time. Thank you so much to Mayor Lucas. You have been an amazing host. All right, so we need to thank our sponsors because honestly, we could not do what we do without our incredible sponsors. So I want to start out with Mars Pet Care. Where are you in the house? Come on. Did you not make it here this morning? We're calling your boss. Anyway, Mars, I love you guys. Thank you so much. American Institute of Architects, where are you? There you are. Thank you, thank you. HDR, in the house, where are you? See, we can tell who did not wake up this morning. Oh no, they're right there, okay. Ike Smart City. Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, Comcast Communications. I know Comcast is in the house. We love you guys, Comcast. Destinations International. Ooh, I love Destinations International. Work a lot with them in my home city. Heartland Forward. Hotwire Communications. I know you're here. Sewer Sentry, the Coca-Cola company. I was just telling our representative that I have this love for Coke Zero. The Meat Institute, U.S. Green Building Council. How do we say this? Viola Water Technologies? How do I say it? Veolia, sounds beautiful, Veolia. Water Technologies, right there in the house. I love it, she stands up. Wells Fargo, thank you. Walton Family Foundation and Walmart, and thank you for the incredible award yesterday. All right, like I said, thank you to our sponsors. We could not do this without you. So before we continue, I want to acknowledge Pride Month and celebrate the unwavering strength of our LGBTQ communities. At the U.S. Conference of Mayors, we are proud to be an organization consistently ahead of the curve when it comes to advocating for the rights of people we represent. In 1984, the U.S. Conference of Mayors was the first organization of elected officials in American history to call for the legal protections of LGBTQ rights at the level of government. Of course we were, we're mayors, duh. And in 2009, we adopted policy supporting marriage equality. As mayors, we have a crucial role to play in protecting our LGBTQ communities. In 2019, the conference established the LGBTQ Alliance to lead our work related to LGBTQ advocacy, policy, and protections. I want to thank our Alliance co-chairs, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria and Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway for their leadership. Are they in the house this morning? Ooh. Who has their phone number? We're calling Satya. You guys laugh, let's call them. The LGBTQ Alliance will be holding a meeting tomorrow at 4:15 p.m. In that session, they will release the results of an 83-city survey the conference just conducted on how mayors are supporting and involving LGBTQ residents. I encourage all interested mayors to attend. Now more than ever, it is crucial for us to come together, to be fully engaged, and to fight for the core values of dignity, safety, and respect and fairness. It really is up to us. Next, here to announce the winners and awards for the 2024 Comcast Talent for Tomorrow Digital Equity Challenge is the Executive Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer for our Platinum Partner sponsor from Comcast. Delilah Scott, come on out.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Sheevy, Mayor Lucas. Is everybody enjoying Kansas City? Maybe some of us a little too much. Well, good morning. My name is Delilah Wilson Scott, Executive Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer of Comcast, as well as President of our Comcast NBC Universal Foundation. And in a moment, I will have the distinct honor and privilege of announcing the winners of the Talent for Tomorrow Digital Equity Challenge, a partnership that we were very well excited to do with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. There's not a person in this room that's not committed to advancing economic mobility for our cities, for our communities. But I also know we all understand that digital equity is foundational to that. At Comcast, we've long been invested in digital equity because helping more people excel in this increasingly digital world that we live in will impact the economic competitiveness of our cities and towns. We also know this is highly localized work. Each community has a different economic development landscape, workforce challenges, and we know that as mayors, you are the closest to these issues. You're best suited to identify the needs, the solutions, and create the pathways to opportunity that we all want to see. That's why we're proud to directly engage with so many of you here today. Throughout the country, we're hard at work partnering with cities and states to expand our world-class next-generation broadband network to communities that have long been unserved or underserved, bringing that promise and potential of high-speed internet to more people while at the same time continuing to invest in our network and the communities that we already serve. And through Project Up, our billion-dollar commitment to digital equity, we're providing connectivity, tools, the digital skills that people need to succeed in today's workforce. It's an intentional commitment building on more than a decade of work to create opportunities that will change lives and communities for generations to come. As mayors, you know that climbing the economic ladder requires more than an internet connection. We know that 92% of the jobs available today, regardless of industry, require a digital skill. Investing in skills and workforce training is an urgent issue. We also know that many people continue to face challenges accessing education, training, quality career-focused programs, and the credentials that are needed to attain digital proficiency. Just last month, we collaborated with the National Skills Coalition to release a new body of research to help us even better understand public perspectives on skills training and helping bridge the digital divide. The good news is the research revealed widespread bipartisan public support for expanding digital skills training programs. Access to skills training is needed in all industries. 70% of registered voters believe that skills training is important to transportation, manufacturing, childcare, and home health care industries. We also know 3/4 of registered voters believe expanding skills is an important way to improve the economy, and over 2/3 believe that lack of access to training is still a serious problem for workers in the current labor market. Closing the digital skills gap cannot be done alone. This is something we must all partner on together. Public, private, philanthropic, nonprofit sectors, investing in digital skill building and job training is truly essential. That's why we are so proud to deepen our partnership with mayors through our new $1.5 million grant challenge to support and expand digital training programs across 10 winning cities. The Talent for Tomorrow Digital Equity Challenge will help more people, especially those most likely to be left out of the economy, the digital economy, benefit from economic opportunities that come with acquiring in-demand digital skills. Among a highly competitive group of applications, our panel of esteemed judges selected 10 winners, 4 small cities, 3 medium, and 3 large cities. But before we announce our 10 winning cities, I want to acknowledge our judges and thank them for their support. Sylvester Turner, former mayor of the City of Houston, Michael Hancock, former mayor of the City of Denver, Lori Larea, former president and CEO of the Workforce Solutions in Greater Dallas, Michael O'Brien, founder and CEO of Human Nature, and Ron Painter, former president and CEO of the National Association of Workforce Boards. And before I begin, I want to ask the audience to please hold your applause until all the winners are announced, and if each winning mayor or your delegate could stand up as your name and city is called. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to announce the inaugural winners of the 2024 U.S. Conference of Mayors and Comcast Talent for Tomorrow Digital Equity Challenge. We'll begin with the small cities first. Each city will be awarded with $75,000 to support their digital equity program. First up, Mayor Don Hardy of Kinston, North Carolina for the Digital Equity Corps. Mayor Angie Nelson Deitch, Michigan City, Indiana for the Michigan City Digital Revitalization Initiative. Mayor Thomas Roach from White Plains, New York for Project Digital Jumpstart. Mayor Michael Helfrich from York, Pennsylvania for the Digital Equity for Justice Impacted Residents Initiative. Next, for the medium-sized awards, each medium-sized city will receive $150,000 to support their digital equity program. First up, Mayor Justin Bibb, City of Cleveland for the Rec and Tech program. Mayor Frank Scott Jr. from Little Rock, Arkansas for the Digital Skills Growth program. Mayor LeVar Stoney from Richmond, Virginia for SOLVE, Strategic Opportunities Leading to Valuable Experiences. Finally, for the last three awards to large cities, each will be awarded $250,000 to support their digital equity program. Mayor Vi Lyles, Charlotte, North Carolina for the UNT Tech CLT program. Mayor Karen Bass, Los Angeles, California for Los Angeles Career Connect. And Mayor Ted Wheeler from Portland, Oregon for the Portland Digital Equity Service Corps. Please join me in congratulating our winning mayors. I encourage all of you to get to hear and learn from these mayors. At 11, we'll actually have a breakout session where you'll hear from the mayors of Michigan City, York, and Little Rock and get a little bit more detail about the variety of digital equity initiatives that this program will support. I definitely hope that all of you will join. It's open to all attendees. So to the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the Workforce Development Council, just want to thank you for the opportunity to partner with you on this important initiative. We think it's one of the most critical issues facing our country today. We're honored to collaborate with mayors across the country to help our cities compete and thrive. Also, want to give a big thank you to all the winning mayors and to all the mayors who applied and participated. The 2024 Talent for Tomorrow Digital Equity Challenge is not the only opportunity to engage with us, so we're eager to work with you on this issue. It's inspiring to see the effort and passion that mayors across the country are putting behind this issue and ensuring residents are equipped with the digital skills they need to thrive in the global economy and to share in the American dream. Before I turn it back to Mayor Shivi, I'd like to leave you with a look at the hardworking town of Biola, California, where Comcast was able to partner with our community to expand broadband infrastructure and invest in local community organizations.
Biola is probably one of the hardest working communities that I've ever worked with.
Biola is known for farming. We're a big ag community, growing raisins. We have a lot of families.
We knew 5 years ago that our connectivity was challenged, and then COVID hit. It really put up a spotlight to the Biola community and its lack of connectivity.
I remember we almost went 2 years in a shutdown with no real way to connect with kids and no real way to help the process of their education.
I have no doubt that the access that Comcast has brought to Biola is going to really transform this community. We want to see Biola continue to build and thrive.
My 7-year-old having access to high-speed internet, she's already leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at her age.
Some families had to leave because they were not able to receive the resources that they needed. By having this connectivity, they are given every opportunity, every privilege to grow and thrive.
Love that video. Well, congratulations again to all the winners and the mayors in the room for all you do on behalf of our cities each and every single day. Please enjoy the rest of the annual meeting.
All right, thank you, Delilah. All right. In this presidential election year, as we have done in the past, we've reached out to both campaigns, to the Trump and Biden campaigns, inviting them to send a representative to speak to us at our annual meeting about city issues and how we can all work together. We are fortunate to have the co-chair of President Biden's 2024 re-election campaign with us today. He previously worked as a senior advisor to President Biden, where he was instrumental in overseeing the historic Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. As the former mayor of New Orleans? Is that how we say it? I say New Orleans, and they're like, oh, it's New Orleans. Is that how, New Orleans? Okay. And the 75th president of the United States Conference of Mayors, he's a familiar face, of course. Mayors, please welcome, and I call him the OG, he's one of the OGs, and he'll always be a mayor to me. And matter of fact, fun fact here, I would not be standing here today if it wasn't for the wonderful Mayor Mitch Landrieu. He put me on the tapes committee, and that's how I got here. So come on out, my friend. Mwah. Thank you. I know, Love Fest. Thank you, thank you.
Oh my goodness, good morning everybody, how are you? Ooh, y'all sound like y'all in New Orleans, that's how you say it, by the way. Y'all sound like y'all went out late last night. How's everybody? Let's try that again. Good morning. It's great to be home again. When I was listening to Mayor Lucas talk and I was thinking about the fact that his son was just born, I actually thought back. My father was the mayor of the city of New Orleans when I was 10. And I started coming to these conferences as a little kid and had the opportunity to get mayors flowing through my soul and in my blood. I later, as you know, became mayor of the city of New Orleans, the best 8 years of my life, the best job I ever had. Please don't tell President Biden I said that. And I'm thrilled to be back here with the people that I know and love who, as President Biden knows, mayors get things done. You hear this all of the time because it, in fact, is true. Not a whole lot of smoke needs to be blown about who the people are that gets things done in America. So to Tom and his team, to Mayor Lucas, to our president of the USCM, thank you guys for having me here today. You guys might have heard that there's an election. Elections in the United States of America are supposed to be sacred events. They are the things that set us apart and have for 200 plus years as we transfer power, supposedly peaceably, as a result of free elections when the people of the United States of America make a choice every 4 years. It is a sacred obligation that we make sure that everybody in this country has a right to vote and that they're informed to do so. And so today I come on behalf of President Biden. You know that I spent 2 years with him helping rebuild the country, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I've been knowing Joe Biden since I was a young guy. I knew him when I was a state legislator and he was a senator. I knew him when he was the vice president. And of course, I've gotten to know him much better as a president of the United States. I work with him on a daily basis, and I can tell you that I have not come across in my life a more dedicated public servant than Joseph Biden, who has sacrificed his entire life and has gone through excruciating pain, trials, and tribulations, and yet has produced one of the most prolific 4 years of American governing in the history of our country. I know that all of you know this because you have worked with presidents before. In my life, I had the wonderful opportunity to work with 5 presidents. One of them wasn't so thrilling to work with, and that was Donald John Trump. And I say that to you that directly because people have a little bit of amnesia, but let me recall for you that when Donald Trump was serving as president of the United States, many of you woke up every day and said, what the hell did that guy do today that I have to think about? You will remember that in 2008 we had a recession, and President Obama and Vice President Biden brought this country back from economic disaster and produced a strong economy that they handed over to Donald Trump. In 2 short years, because of his policies and because of COVID, that government tanked. It also tanked because Donald Trump didn't know how to pick good people who know how to do good things. As a matter of fact, 17 of them actually quit and are now begging us not to put him close to the Oval Office. And so we have a choice in America in the not too distant future. And as I like to tell all 5 of my children almost every time I see them, good choices equal good consequences, and bad choices equal bad consequences. I have 8 brothers and sisters. We have 38 kids between us. I have more cousins than I can count. And I can tell you that the United States of America, countries are like families. They're not all the same. They're different. But they resolve their differences peacefully, and they always show up at the dinner table. But they always show up at the dinner table because there's some sacred rules that we all agree to abide by, no matter what our differences are. That paradigm has shifted with the election of Donald Trump. You're not seeing anything right now going on in this country that we haven't seen in the Deep South for the last 50, 60, 70 years, but it's never made its way into the White House, and it certainly never made its way into the halls of the Capitol in the midst of an insurrection that President Trump helped formulate. So when Joe Biden took office, we were in the middle of a public health threat, second to none. Thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of our relatives were dying. We now know that President Biden took over in the midst of an insurrection, and we had a cataclysmic economic downfall. And when the country called on Joe Biden, he delivered. He went to work right away. He passed the American Rescue Plan. You know that well, because he believed in you, and he sent the money directly to the mayors of America because he knew what worked. He passed the bipartisan infrastructure law. We passed the CHIPS Act. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest climate investment in American history and the most stringent rules, beating back Big Pharma to make sure that people are able to afford their prescription drugs. See, Joe Biden wakes up every day. He wakes up every day, and he thinks about the American people. He thinks about how to lift us up. He thinks about how to bring us together. He fights for you. Donald Trump wakes up every day. You know this. He thinks about himself. He thinks about how he can help his rich friends. And then he spends a lot of time getting even with people who dared to buck him. Now, we happen to know that very well in this association because when I was the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and we were supposed to go to the White House that day, 15 minutes before we left, Donald Trump's Attorney General sent a letter to me telling me that he was going to arrest the following 25 or 30 mayors if we did not bend the knee to Donald Trump's immigration policy that separated families. That's the punitive kind of work that Donald Trump did. So think about this when you make your choice. What Joe Biden thinks about mayors is they should be cabinet secretaries. What Joe Biden thinks about mayors is they ought to be senior advisors. What Joe Biden thinks about mayors is he ought to give them money directly because he knows they run the economic engine of the United States of America that, by the way, in partnership with the rural sector, actually builds a community where we all can be together. Because the idea that Joe Biden has is that we all come to the table of democracy as equals, that diversity is our strength, that if we invest in the American people and we invest in things, that we can do big things and create a future that takes us closer to that more perfect union. So Joe Biden thinks we ought to be in the cabinet. Donald Trump thinks we ought to be in jail. I think that the choice is pretty clear for mayors in America. And Joe Biden doesn't have to just come here and talk. He actually brings the receipts. The American Rescue Plan, billions of dollars directly into cities so that we could keep on payroll police officers, firefighters, emergency service technicians, our teachers. You may recall that we used it to feed kids who were not getting fed because they weren't going to school. He passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, roads, bridges, airports, ports, waterways. You just saw high-speed internet all across America because he doesn't think a little girl in the South needs to be sitting in her mama's car outside of McDonald's trying to do her homework by stealing the internet, he thinks that she ought to have access to knowledge because access to knowledge is the great equalizer in America that has been left behind. And we have delivered on that promise. Clean air, safe water, thank you. All of those things are coming your way because of the bipartisan infrastructure law, a vision that the president has had for so many years. And you know this well, too, because for all you folks that have been serving for a long time, people always talked about Infrastructure Week, and they never delivered. But you called on Joe Biden, and in the first 120 days in his office, he delivered something to you that hasn't been delivered to the cities of America since Eisenhower was in office. That's a receipt that we're never, ever going to forget. And as a consequence of all of this legislation, the president has created 15 million jobs. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the history of the United States for the last 50 years, the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans, for Hispanics. Count it any way you want, this economy is blowing and going. But the president knows that this economy is not treating everybody equally. That's why he's gone after Big Pharma. That's why he's gone after the big oil and gas industries. That's why he's going after the big grocery store chains, to quit profit taking and to let those costs go down just like now, their costs, because the supply chains have been lifted. And that is what President Biden has spent his time doing. And he's going to continue to do that because it works. But ladies and gentlemen, our freedoms are at stake. We now have a Supreme Court that doesn't respect the most basic freedoms, a woman's right to choose. It is the first time in the history of that court that they've actually taken rights back, and all the evidence suggests that that's going to get worse should Donald Trump get to be president of the United States and puts a couple of more guys like Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito on the Supreme Court. And young folks need to think about that as well. There are other freedoms that they're coming after, because if they'll come after a woman's right to choose, they'll come after anything, and they've talked about it already. But finally, let me end with this. The most important thing about this election, something different than anything that all of you have faced in your life, is that democracy is at risk. The very foundations of our society are at risk because one candidate for the president of the United States does not believe in the idea of America. It is a simple idea. The idea that we all come to the table of democracy as equals. And my friends, if you don't believe in that idea, you don't really believe in America. You don't really trust Americans. You don't really believe that our greatest superpower, our diversity, is a strength. You think that's a weakness. And my friends, that is a prescription for disaster. So make no mistake about it. President Biden, on his own right, in a good year, running against any candidate, has done a great job in the world. But the one thing that he has done that nobody else in this country has done is stood in the breach and told Donald Trump, no, you cannot use your power to abuse people. No, you cannot use your power to seek retribution and revenge. No, you have to treat people equally in the United States of America. And I, Joe Biden, am going to stand between you and autocracy. You don't have to believe my words. You can just believe Donald Trump's words. So let me say this. Whether it's fighting for freedom, whether it's fighting to lessen the load on American citizens, or in fact fighting for democracy, please understand this, that the choice we're about to make is going to have a consequence that will last for generations. It will either take us backwards or it will take us towards that more perfect union. The wolf is at the door of the table of democracy. And my friends, Joe Biden is standing in between that and the future, and we need you to stand with us. Please help us finish the job. God bless you all. Let's get back to work. Thank you.
Please welcome Coca-Cola Company's Senior Director of Public Affairs, Andres Peña.
Good morning. I'm Andres Peña from the Coca-Cola Company, and first things first, I'd like to thank Mayor Sheevy, Tom Cochran, and the U.S. Conference of Mayors for putting on a really great event. It truly is an honor to be here with all of you. And I'd especially like to thank Mayor Quinton Lucas for hosting us in wonderful Kansas City. But some serious business first, Mayor, if he's still in the room. I think I speak for all Texans when I say, can we please have Patrick Mahomes back? You can find Coca-Cola in all 50 states, and I'd expect in all of your communities. Along with our bottling partners, we generate $57.8 billion in economic activity every year. And we support over 854,000 jobs in communities big and small across the US. We've also set ambitious sustainability goals. We're going to make 100% of our packaging recyclable by 2025, next year, and by 2030, we'll do two things. Use at least 50% recycled material in our packaging, and collect and recycle 1 bottle or can for each one we sell. Meeting those goals takes collaboration with mayors like yourselves and significant investments in your communities. That's why our industry, through the American Beverage Association's Every Bottle Back initiative, has supplied more than 775,000 recycling bins in neighborhoods. We've upgraded equipment so more materials can be processed faster. We've provided educational materials to help residents recycle properly, and advocated for modern collection policy solutions. One thing we are especially proud of at Coca-Cola is how, even as a global brand, we are able to stay refreshingly local. We're able to do that because of our 64 independent bottling partners across the US who operate locally in all of your communities. Right here in Kansas City, our local bottler is Heartland Coca-Cola. In addition to delivering great beverages, the beverages you all know and love, throughout Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois, Heartland is especially active in supporting and volunteering with local organizations, such as Veterans Community Project, the United Way, the Special Olympics, and so many other great local groups that work every day to improve lives in your communities. We know that we are only as strong as the communities we serve, and we value opportunities to collaborate with local leaders like yourselves, whether that be working together on innovative new projects in your community or showing up and supporting important local organizations. So on behalf of Coca-Cola, thank you for having us, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Please welcome back the CEO and Executive Director of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Tom Cochran.
Ladies and gentlemen, last year when we met, we had a leader of this organization that said mental health is a crisis. Since last year, we have taken this message to Washington. We've taken it to Europe. And we all know that so many of us have mental health issues in our families. But when that happens, sometimes there's no place to find services. And sometimes it's just the cops that come and you have the jails. I jokingly have said that in America, if you need a psychiatrist for your dog, you can get one. But if you need one for your child or your mother, if you don't have the money, you can't find one. So we appreciate so much our President's leadership. And I just want to point out that USA Today named her the Woman of the Year for Mental Health. Let's watch the video.
I hate to say this of a mayor from Nevada, but she has the heart the size of Texas, okay?
I lost my brother and my sister to mental illness.
I love seeing strong female leadership.
People have no idea how much pressure there is until they sit in that seat.
A leader of mayors, a leader of leaders.
Your leadership is really something to be in awe of.
You will always be a leader to me, and I very much admire you.
You have been a president of the Conference of Mayors that is not willing to only talk about their successes, but to talk about the challenges that you've had.
She has been candid, compassionate, and authentic in terms of how important it is for us to address our nation's mental health crisis.
Arguably one of the most important, if not the most important issues in America.
Making that the priority for our U.S. Conference of Mayors is going to be something that I believe is transformational in America.
That passion you have for mental health and the passion you have for the people of this country, I will not forget that.
We're grateful for the attention to mental health and so many other initiatives that you have brought forward.
The drug crisis is really severe. Treating our mental illness in our jails is absolutely not working. It's a humanitarian crisis.
President Shivi, it is with a grateful heart that I thank you for your service to our organization.
It's been a privilege to serve with you and to follow your leadership and to call you a friend.
I just can't thank you enough for the support and encouragement that you've given me and that you've given so many other mayors here.
President Shivi, just grateful to you, the way you have made this conference so accessible to so many mayors, regardless of the size of their community, what part of the country they come from, regardless of party or background.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States Conference of Mayors from Reno, Nevada, Hillary Shivi.
I'm going on Ozempic. I am definitely, you know, we look at ourselves and we see things that other people don't see, and I have to tell you, what a year this has been, and I want to thank each and every one of you for saying mental health was absolutely the right issue to continue to talk about and highlight. They said, oh, we want you to do a speech, and you guys know me. I don't do anything traditional, and I'm like, I'm not doing a long, boring speech. It's just not my nature. But one of the things is that after every council meeting, my mother likes to call me and say, why are you wasting your life? She literally does. And so she has no idea. She's like, why are you going to that conference again? So the most important thing I want to do is I want to take a picture of all of you because I need to send this to my mom. Mom, I thought I was making you proud going to council meetings and things like that. Anyway, okay, 1, 2, 3, suck it in. 1, 2, 3, suck it in. Perfect. But I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You know, there's so many times I think, especially as women, you get up here, you feel like imposter syndrome, and I have been so fortunate to be just loved and accepted by all of you and my colleagues. It really is like a family on every level. But all of you have done remarkable things in your cities on mental health, and I'm very, very grateful. You'll never know how grateful I am. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm going to show my mom, like, actually I have friends and, you know, I'm not wasting my life. I swear, Mom, I'm not. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Please welcome back Mayor Sheevy and her guest, President and CEO of Mental Health America, Schroeder Stribling.
On mental health. You are doing some impressive work. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And Crystal, where are you? Crystal, I love you. She said you've got to meet this woman. She's amazing. So talk a little bit, because you are the nation's leading nonprofit focused on advancing mental health, well-being, and prevention. Mental Health America has impacted millions of people across this country. So talk a little bit about what you're doing and what your role is.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the Conference of Mayors. I want to thank all of you for your leadership. I want to thank you for your focus on mental health. We have heard from so many of you, and your leadership has been inspirational to watch. And one of the things that's been truly powerful and I think transformative about it is that you're willing to bring yourself forward into the story and into the narrative, and that's a big part of what makes a difference. Mental Health America is a 115-year-old advocacy organization.
Wow, I didn't know you guys were that old.
We were started in 1909 by a man who himself had lived experience. He had a mental health condition that caused him to be institutionalized in what was an asylum of the times, and he was subject to the abusive treatment, which was common in asylums at the time. And he came out, still a young man. He made a wonderful, strong recovery, and it became his life's mission to have a social reform movement for mental hygiene, was what he called it at the beginning. And so now we have a national office. We do research, public policy at the federal level, state and local advocacy, and we've worked with some of you before in that way, and public education for the general public. And we have 143 affiliates who are around the country delivering direct mental health services in your communities.
Wow, that is fantastic. Kind of, I always say this, and I know people like sort of cringe when I say it, but I do think the #1 crisis in America is our mental health crisis.
I agree.
How do you feel about that?
If we don't have our mental health, we really don't have anything. And of course, we all have mental health just like we all have health. Mental health is health. I think it's the most important public health crisis that we're facing right now, and absolutely priority #1 from every angle.
Yeah. The other thing that's really staggering is the high rates of suicide we're seeing in young people.
Yes.
I mean, what is your data showing? It's been alarming in my city.
The data is alarming everywhere. So last year we had record high levels of suicide, deaths by suicide, record high levels of opioid deaths, record high levels of other drug-related and alcohol-related deaths, record high levels of homelessness in our count in homelessness. And we know there's a big intersection with homelessness and mental health. So the data across the board are from our federal agencies, our own data from our National Prevention and Screening Program, and other organizations all tell us the same thing. We are in an unprecedented moment. It's complex, it's multifactorial. We know some of the causes. We're kind of still in the middle of the crisis. I think it's going to take some time for us to really unspool all of our understanding about it. But we're coming out of a pandemic, which depleted our mental health greatly, depleted everyone's resilience, had a negative influence, of course, on youth, on their development, on schooling, on time lost, isolation and loneliness, as we saw the Surgeon General's picture, are clearly, an epidemic for us too, and the socioeconomic and sociopolitical stresses of the time are really significant for mental health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What could cities do to sort of address that? Just give us some examples of what you think mayors could do to move the needle.
Well, first of all, I want to empathize with you and say that public leaders and elected officials are under so much pressure to address these very complicated issues. And it can't be addressed by one agency or department alone. It can't be addressed by one mayor alone. You need resources, you need capacity, you need collaboration, we need innovation, you need resources down from the federal level, you need advocates like us who are supporting the needs, et cetera. So there's a lot that is being done already, and I want to acknowledge and honor so much innovation that's going on. I know you and your city did Talkspace for Everyone. That was a really neat and innovative thing there. The Denver Star has a really cool STAR program, which is a new type of response. I think we can focus on a couple of key things. One is access. So access, that could be any number of things. Access has to do with cost. Can people afford to get the coverage? Access has to do with workforce. Do we have enough people, clinics, et cetera, to see folks? Access as well has to do with geography. Can people get transportation there? Or if not, is telehealth available? Is broadband available, like we saw a minute ago? So access is one. 988 is another. And so many of you are doing great work in the rollout of 988, our new crisis response system. Ideally, as that gets built out, that becomes, we push farther and farther upstream so that we're not only effectively addressing crisis at the final moment of crisis, but that we're moving to the point where we can prevent those crises as much as possible. So having the hotline in place is great. Having warm lines is terrific. Having peer outreach workers, mobile crisis teams, innovative, community-based, customized responses for the communities is really important. So continuing to build out, because crisis is not a win.
Right.
We want to remember that, but we want to effectively address it and then keep pushing upstream. The use of peers we think is really important. And it can be part of the workforce solution as well.
Yes. It's very important.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I get really frustrated. And what are you seeing in this space? Because I'm not hearing enough about it. I'm not seeing enough being addressed. But to treat those who are some of the, the sickest people in our country, the access to addiction, treatment, long-term care. We've sort of like allowed people just to be on the street and it's okay. I mean, can you imagine if they had Alzheimer's? You'd be like, that is not acceptable to leave that poor man there.
Right.
But because it's mental health or he's acting strange or bizarre, then we're like, oh, it's okay, just leave him there.
Right.
What about, this is what makes me have so much anxiety, is the long-term care.
Yes.
For people that obviously can't take care of themselves. And that's why we are treating mental health in our jails, and it's totally unacceptable. Talk about, like, what are you seeing for the long term? Because that's what gives me so much anxiety, is how are we going to treat them long term?
You are absolutely right. Jails and shelters are the institutions of our day.
So true.
So when we think about the history of our organization, we know that today that's the fight for deinstitutionalization, is around jails and shelters, because this is not the way to effectively or compassionately care for people who have serious mental illness. Before I came to Mental Health America 3 years ago, for 18 years, I was running a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. that did a range of services for people experiencing homelessness, many of whom were coping with mental health challenges. And a little hometown pride shout out to Mayor Muriel Bowser and the team in Washington, D.C., who were extremely innovative about outreach and new approaches to managing this. So we know that there's a causal relationship. People who have mental health exists on a continuum, and people who have, at the very serious end of the continuum, more serious illnesses like schizophrenia, like bipolar disorder, et cetera, are more vulnerable to homelessness. They're more vulnerable to, and they're more vulnerable to incarceration and to the ways that you get stuck in the system. There are solutions. I know it because I've seen them in practice. I've seen them work. Permanent supportive housing is critical. So this means housing that's community embedded, so you have a community. You have supports there that has
The
voluntary
services around it.
services that are wrapped around for you. Integrated services, so your health care and your mental health care and your social health needs can be met there. Peer supports and community connection are really, really critical. So we know these things work, but again, this is very complex because you cannot address the mental health issues without addressing the housing.
It's so
And
true.
this is becoming and I really do empathize for mayors who are under so much public pressure. Big questions are in the air. Is coercive treatment okay? When should it be appropriate or not?
Right.
And what we say at Mental Health America is only as an absolute last resort, because it can be a much more traumatic than in fact effective or useful intervention for people. And if you leave a hospital or if you leave jail and you have no place to go and you return to homelessness, we haven't done anything.
It's so true because it cycles. It just keeps cycling. You know, and then I think for a long time, and I think we have to admit that what we were doing was broken for so long in housing. We would say, oh, housing first. So we would just put people in housing that needed severe services or extensive services, and they would completely fail.
Right.
And versus someone we could put in like a senior that can sustainably live in housing long term.
Yes.
So that's another thing, like especially with mayors, because we know how crucial housing is.
Yes.
How many of you are doing transitional housing and supported services housing in your cities? Raise your hand. Oh, I see Larry and Baird over there. Mayor Baird, I see. Well, I can't see over here, but I see hands up. Super, super important. We are not doing enough of that. And so I think that's where, really, to your point, that would be sort of the new approach to the major crisis. It's got to be supportive housing.
It has to be supportive housing, and it has to have community built in. That's really one of the other things that we find is important, is that social connections, ongoing continuous social connection in your community is really critical to people's stability and long-term well-being. And there are great models out there that do work. I know many of you are probably working on them right now, and that was a great show of hands, so that's encouraging.
Yeah, it's really, well, mayors get it done, for sure.
Mayors get it done.
And they understand housing, and they understand mental health. Yeah. Honestly, so that's where I have optimism, right? So, okay, any takeaways? Is there any, what's the best piece of advice you could give to a mayor if they said, how do I jump into mental health? Like, what can I do for my city? Is there one?
I think those are the three things that I would focus on, is access, full implementation of an effective crisis continuum, and the social drivers issues. So where things intersect with housing, where they intersect with criminal justice, where they intersect with rural issues, with schools, et cetera, so that we're on an equitable playing field so that people can get access. And then the last thing I would want to leave people with is the notion that there is hope and there is help. And that for every one individual person who finds their way to help and to hope and to their own stability and the goals they want, that's a win. And we need to celebrate that.
That's so true. And then I would just say this, because I hid it for so long in my family when my brother and sister were struggling with mental health. I didn't want to embarrass them. I also felt ashamed. I mean, it was this whole thing that I went through my whole entire life. But I will tell you this, as mayors, one of the things that you have done, and it's been very courageous, is talk about your own history and stories with mental health. Because that is whenever I saw a complete shift in my community. And I mean, I had people coming up to me on the streets and in my emails and saying, oh my gosh, it wasn't until you started talking about your mental health that I could talk about mine. So I always say, if your mayor's not talking about it, then who is? So all of you mayors, if once you start to share that, not to mention, I felt like this huge weight was sort of lifted off my shoulders, this huge secret, dark secret that I'd been keeping for so long in my family, that it really, that's what sort of changed it in my community, where people were like, I can relate now. I feel like it's okay. If you're struggling, then I know that it's okay for me to struggle. So I think being
it's
very real with each other.
Very real. I think that's one of the most powerful things you can do as a leader, is to speak from your own heart, to speak from your own truth, and to share your own experience. 1 in 5 of us will experience a mental health condition each year. 1 in 5 of us. There are a lot of us in this room. In the course of our lifetime, half of us will experience a mental health condition, a diagnosable one. This means that we're all affected, because our families are affected, our friends, our loved ones, et cetera. So we all have a story, and sharing our story is one of the most powerful things we can do. I thank you and your leadership.
Well, thank you, Schroeder. You're amazing. I can't wait to have you back. All
Well,
right. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for what you're doing.
With a few mayors who I call my ride or dies. They have been with me through thick and thin throughout this presidency. But one of the things that they did, and I'm so grateful for, is they did the fly-ins, they did the advocacy, they called their legislators. They were nonstop, relentless warriors. And you guys know that I think we do carry a pretty big stick in Washington when all of us are collectively together. And so I couldn't be more grateful whenever I appointed the chair of the Mental Health Task Force, and then when I became the president, you know, this elevated to what we were doing on a whole new level. But if it wasn't for these three, and going to Washington and just nonstop, relentlessly saying we need better mental health, and destigmatizing the issue to this extent, I don't think we would have nearly have had the success that we've had this year. So I want to bring out 3 mayors that really need no introduction. And that is Mayor Aquanetta Warren. Come on out, my friend. Yay! Aquanetta, you look so good. Do you know what she said to me? Well, what, did I look terrible before? That's like when you said you lost so much weight. It wasn't about weight, but remember we were saying, because you had the boot on and all that.
God.
You look
Health
amazing.
below.
But Aquanetta Warren has been my ride or die through this whole experience. Thank you, thank you.
No, thank you for your great leadership.
Come sit down. And then we've got the one and only from Fresno, Mayor Jerry Dyer. Come on out.
My favorite mayor.
And then, of course, who heads up all of us whenever we head to Washington, D.C., and he is he's so good at what he does. Mayor Waller, come on out from Piscataway, where he likes to say Rutgers, right? Hello.
Hey, Mayor, good
You
to
have
see
to
you.
wrangle all of us when we're in D.C. But he's the one.
Stomping grounds.
Yes, right? That's right. You worked on the Hill
Yes.
when you were just this big.
When I was in high school, I had an opportunity to work for Speaker O'Neill on Capitol Hill, so I went to school in the Library of Congress. So it was quite an interesting thing going back all this time, seeing some of the old places where I used to go in high school.
Well, I will be like going through the hallways, and they're like, "Hey!" Like,
the staircases.
The staircases. He's like famous there.
I knew
So,
all the
like,
shortcuts.
You have juice there.
Yeah.
And then he would tell me stories. It's like, "Oh, Hillary, I used to work here," and he'd like have amazing stories. So you are like the perfect person to lead up this initiative. But I wanted to bring them out because what I wanted to do is show you the impact of how important it is to know your legislators, those relationships, and the accessibility. So like I said, you guys were my ride or die, and it really made a difference. Senator Raskin said, "Hey, Hillary, we're putting this stuff in the bill because of you." And then, then I learned that I got sort of inducted into the New Jersey mayors. You and Bullwich said, "Hey, you're one of us now," because I got to go into a private meeting with your representatives. Anyway, I want to show you something about the power of the story, and this is, I think it speaks volumes, this testimony that I'm about to show you. Any of you familiar with Jelly Roll? Hands, let me see your hands. Okay. Have you seen this video, this testimony? It is very, very powerful. So I wanted to show why being at the Hill makes such a huge difference. Do we have that video? Can we roll that?
I have no political alliance. I am neither Democrat nor Republican. In fact, because of my past, my right to vote has been restricted. Thus far, I have never paid attention to a political race in my life. Ironically, I think that makes me the perfect person to speak about this because fentanyl transcends partisanship and ideology, gentlemen and women. This is a totally different problem. And I was speaking outside to the media, and I gave them a statistic that said 190 people a day overdose and die every single day in the United States of America. That is about a 737 plane. That's what about a 737 aircraft can carry. Could you imagine the national media attention it would get if they were reporting that a plane was crashing every single day and killing 190 people? But because it's 190 drug addicts, we don't feel that way. Because America has been known to bully and shame drug addicts instead of dealing and trying to understand what the actual root of the problem is with that. But the sad news is that narrative is changing too, because the statistics say that in all likelihood, almost every person in this room has lost a friend, family member, or colleague to the disease known as addiction. I've attended more funerals than I care to share with y'all. This committee, I could sit here and cry for days about the caskets I've carried of people I loved dearly.
Nope. We lost him. But anyway, so he is famous musician. And I was so moved by his testimony. And I said, this is really the power of what we were doing on the Hill. Talk a little bit about that, Mayor Dyer, not to mention, they have to just make a phone call, and because we're like, oh, we can't get in to see so-and-so. You guys make a phone call. I was like, yeah, don't worry, I got it. But talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you and why it was so important.
Well, first, thank you for everything you've done in leading the way on mental health, because absent that, this would not be a national issue. I really believe that. But you know, one of the things that I learned in going to DC over the years is how uninformed some of our elected officials are. Not ignorant, but uninformed. And the reason is because they oftentimes don't hear enough from those who are out there on the streets, front line, like mayors or police chiefs and the like. And one of the things that I really appreciated was the openness, the receptivity of the folks that were there, and the bipartisanship. You know, there are certain things you go into a congressman's office or congresswoman's office, and you can tell within 5 minutes where they stand on the issue. We found absolutely no resistance to the issue of mental health. People understood that is what's driving our unsheltered population, our teen suicides, that we have more people suffering from mental health that are filling our prisons and our jails, that it is one of the leading causes of police officer calls for service, and the demand that it's taking on our community. And so I was appreciative of the fact that they were receptive, and not just receptive, but willing to do something, to act upon the information that we provided them. And so I was grateful to be there, not only on the Hill for the mental health issue, but also the homelessness issue. And as we all know as mayors, those two go hand in hand. And so you can't address one without the other, and as well as fentanyl. There's so many of our youth today that are addicted to opioids, and unfortunately overdosing on fentanyl. But oftentimes the root cause of that is they're suffering from a mental health issue. As you know, I spent 40 years in law enforcement and the last 18 years as a chief, so I got to see
police
that
chief
firsthand.
You're a police chief. That means, think about it, if you're the police chief and you get elected as mayor, holy crap, you are well liked.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be so impossible
And
to
suffering from mental health.
right.
So I just think we made a huge impact, and I think we're going to see lasting results as a result of that from DC. So thank you.
And you brought up something. You said, you know, Bill Clinton back in the 80s said this.
90s, yes.
Or was it the 90s? And then, so you sort of equated this, you know, Bill Clinton sort of, what was it? It was his...
So back in the 90s, we had a crime wave across our country. In fact, many cities were under siege. Drive-by shootings, home invasion robberies, murder rates had skyrocketed. And so Bill Clinton did something that was very courageous. And he led the issue of 100,000 cops fully funded by the federal government for 3 years and place them in cities across America. And I believe that was a single thing that saved America from that violent crime wave. And my message to those in DC is that we have a mental health crisis in America. And it is time for the people in Washington, D.C. to step up and fully fund 100,000 mental health clinicians so that we can put those out on the front lines to replace our police officers. And that seemed to be received
That
well.
that resonated with all of them. Thank you. I
Thank
love
you.
you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, Aquanetta. You know her. She just walks into a room and like everyone's like, uh-oh, Aquanetta's here. So tell me, how was your experience? Because I was just blown away like how engaged you are, because you'll say, oh yes, I'm a Republican, but like literally you don't care. You'll work with anyone that will work with you. So talk a little bit about that, because I was just blown away about how elegant you were in those meetings.
You know, I'm fighting back tears a little bit because I think we as Americans need to stop this. We're not doing any good for anyone when we're not bipartisan.
Yeah.
As a mayor and you're on the dais, nobody gives a hoot what party you're from, or your gender, or your sexual preference. What they care about is you're getting things done. And I'm just tired of it. I got tired of it about 20 years ago. And that's why I fight hard for the people that elected me, because they didn't care. I think mental health is a big crisis that we can no longer ignore, because it's the root of all the issues that we're throwing money at. And all money is not good money. We need to solve this problem as fast as we can, because we're creating a generation of young people that won't have anywhere to look forward to. How do you sleep at night when you know you haven't done everything you could in your power to make the quality of life for your residents better? I would always tell the story. We work with Water of Life Community Church that has a program called CityLink. We just took 42 people off the street. And a lot of them were children, women with children living in cars. What do you think that does to a child? Their mental health status. When they go to school every day and they see the parents picking up the other kids, and all they go to is a car at night with a flashlight trying to do their homework. We had this family that we were moving in, and we were so happy. Everybody was volunteering, bringing flowers, bringing food. Everything that family needed to get set up, they would have. We're standing there, and a little girl comes by me with a pillow. And I said, honey, where are you going? She says, can I take this to the car? My heart broke. I said, let me show you something. I took her in the bedroom where there were 2 twin beds. And I said, that bed is yours. You don't sleep in the car anymore, honey. That bed is where you're going to sleep tonight, and as far as I can see, forever. She said, really? What about my sister, who was probably about 3 years old? I said, that bed is hers. And she went over to this little girl. She herself was probably not older than 6 years old. I have grandchildren that are the same age. She hugged her and said, that's our beds. These are our pillows. And she looked at her like, wow, America has dropped the ball. We have dropped the ball on what we consider our future. Stop looking down on these people that are standing out on the streets, especially the incarcerated population. They come out with nothing, no driver's license, no social security card. And I know what I'm talking about because I have family members that have been impacted like this. We couldn't get through to them for nothing. All we could do is pray. And some came in and some did not. Look in the mirror. What if it was you? How would you like to try to figure out every day where you go to the restroom, where you take a shower, where you get your next meal? It's just that simple. And if you're on drugs, it's even worse.
I love that. Because what if it was you?
What if it was you?
What if it was you? Right?
That's right. We're not all perfect. People have challenges. People come out to service. They don't know where to go. Once you're down, if nobody's circling around you to help you get up, you can't waddle out of your own pain. You need help. That trip to Washington, thank you. Even though I feel like I know what's going on, I felt like we're really surfaced and working on those that are in need. Our legislators are in need of understanding of how to fix this problem. It is the most vital thing that we can do to increase the future of this nation.
Well said, Aquanetta, very well said. I love that. What if it were you?
What if it were you?
Okay, Mayor Waller, talk about what it's like to wrangle all of us. You know, Mayor Bass had what, 45 mayors?
I think it was 44 mayors.
44 mayors. And this is the committee that we all look to you, and you have to lead us, and we take your lead when we go in there. And Dave Gatton, by the way, you're amazing when Dave comes with us because he's super skilled. But talk a little bit about, like, why did you want to head up this committee? Well, it's very natural for you because they all know you in Washington.
Well, I think Mayor Sheeby, I think for the record, I want to thank you and the rest of the mayors and the organization for bringing this issue to the forefront. We at the governmental level need to change our thought process about mental health. Years ago, it was always talking about with the kids in the school system about non-drug use. Well, now a lot of states have made that legal. So you have to pivot to something else that's going to help. And in this case, I think having, as Mayor Dyer suggested, 100,000 clinicians out there would pivot. It would help the police departments. Police departments aren't trained for this. We do have a pilot program in our home county in Middlesex County where we share clinicians that ride with the police officers amongst the towns. So that's been tried out from the Attorney General's office because even at the law enforcement level, they recognize there's a major problem out there. One thing I would like to add is that this has become a very personable issue. There's not one person in this room around the country that can't say they know somebody from either their immediate family or extended family who hasn't suffered from mental illness. And it's not just isolated pockets around the country. And I think that's one of the messages that we were going to Washington on 2 occasions to talk about homelessness but mental health, is that we're looking in the eye of the members of Congress and telling it on a personal story. And I think a lot of them understand that because they recognize, even in their own families, that there's been problems with mental issue. So it's an issue that it's bipartisan because people can connect at that level. And I think that's the key. We need to obviously get more funding for at parity for mental health as well as medical health, and there's a lot of funding for beds, as Mayor Warren was saying about that, and clinicians, and I mean there's a whole slew of things that need to be done, and a lot of this can be accomplished in the upcoming Congress with the tax bill. That's going to be critical, and so we're going to be calling on a lot of mayors around the country to get in touch with your members of Congress. So I yield back.
What does that look like? Like, what are we doing next? Because we're all going to take your lead.
Well, for instance, we had a very large victory. Mayor Sheev, I don't know if you realize it or not, about a week and a half ago, the Financial Services Committee reported out, and it's going to go to the full House, some of our initiatives dealing with the veterans' homelessness and mental health. And one of the things that I don't think people realize that, as Mayor Bass was making an argument to her former colleagues, is that by changing the income level guidelines for veterans, we can take care of 90% of the veterans in this by just changing a few words. And I think most people on Capitol Hill understand that. And that's why they reported that out of the Financial Services Committee. So we just got to get the Senate moving along. And I don't think that would have happened unless we as an organization went down and further highlighted that under your presidency, Mayor Sheevy. And I think this is an ongoing effort. We don't know who's going to control Congress after the election. So it's a full court press in the first 100 days by the organizations and mayors. We're going to need your help around the country on this issue.
But for those that don't know, what was happening there is that veterans were being penalized because of their benefits. So basically they were saying, oh, you
make too much money.
You make too much money, therefore you do not qualify.
Make choices between housing or their check.
You will not qualify for a BASH.
And it didn't matter if it was their regular government pension or their medical benefit pension. So they were being penalized. So, and I think a lot of the members of Congress were stunned when they heard that. And then they started scratching their head, hey, well, this shouldn't be right. These folks served our country. And to me, that's an easy ask to take care of. But I think they're starting to get it. And maybe if we're lucky, by the end of this year, we'll be signed into law right there.
And I do think it really holds true that the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
That's right.
For sure.
Right? And I think our timing was perfect in saying, hey, don't forget about this. And then it happened.
Yes, and a lot of it has to go, I'm just encouraging their mayors to get to know their members of Congress. Look them in the eye about this issue, because this is very personable. I'm fortunate enough, Congressman Pallone out of New Jersey is the ranking member on the Energy Commerce. Gary McCarthy from Schenectady, his member is Congressman Tonko, who have a lot of say on this. So each of us out in the audience and through the conference, we have an affiliation, whether it's your U.S. senators or your members of Congress. You need to get out there and explain what is really going on, because we are the ones that are in the trenches on this, and that's why we're seeing on at the local level that needs to be addressed.
You know, one thing I want to talk about too is we have a huge need, and we're looking at capacity for people to be able to live in homes and houses. We need those project vouchers to be funded. Because those developers that are willing to do this type of housing can take that to a bank and get finance, because the days of the tax credits are almost gone. And we can't wait on that capacity. We need to get people in places now. But mayors, if you're happy because you're loved, if you're happy because your budget's approved, you need to wake up, because your public isn't. These people are part of your public, and they impact the other ones that tell you they're happy. You have to get involved in this space. You have to speak to your congressional and Senate leaders. You have to work closely with your county, and you have to work closely with your faith-based community that's willing to dive in and help you. And when people say they want to help, figure a way that you can get their help in to where it needs to be. You're the mayor. You're the mayor. You don't have the capability of acting like it's not happening in your community. I was stunned by some of the legislators. They pulled me to the side. I'm shocked. I thought this was a California problem, Aquanetta. I thought this was a LA, San Francisco problem. He said, I said, look at this delegation of mayors. We got people from Wisconsin and Iowa. Everybody's having this problem. Down south, up north, all around. Puerto Rico, everywhere. We have to act, and we have to do it now.
And Mayor Sheevy, we were fortunate enough to get meetings at the highest level of Congress with Senator Schumer, the majority leader, also the majority leader of the House and the minority leader, so Steve Scalise and also Jeffries. So key committee members. I think it's on their radar screen. I want to thank you and your leadership for doing that. And we want to be able to hand the ball off to Mayor Ginther coming in as president in the first 100 days to further this message along.
Yeah, and I think it's so important because, quite honestly, when mayor walks into the room, they kind of like, oh, the mayor has obviously a lot of people in the community that know them, that they've been elected. It just makes a big difference when the mayor walks into the room because they're starting to listen. And it was funny because, Jerry, do you remember we, let's see, it was McCarthy.
Right.
Yes.
He was still the speaker.
Right.
And I remember all my friends were like, oh my gosh, what is McCarthy like? Because it's funny, you see him on TV and you get this idea in your head. I was incredibly impressed. He was super warm, receptive. He was like, Mayor, how can I help you? Let's do this together. He was amazing.
He wanted to develop a working
could tell
group.
You both had a really strong relationship. And again, your relationships matter. So any advice you could give to mayors when it comes to advocacy work and legislating?
I think it's so important for mayors to get involved, whether it's at the state or national level, and to be able to develop those relationships, because that's the only way we're going to get into the White House. That's the only way we're going to get into Congress, to be able to have our opinions and our insights heard. I can tell you a good story in California. We have what's called the Big 13 mayors, the biggest cities in California that we meet frequently every other week. And we were able to collectively work with our governor and the legislature to pass some things in California that are very unique. Proposition 1, which creates 11,700 more mental health beds in California, increased mental health clinicians, as well as it's also going to allow us to do some things that perhaps we weren't with housing. So if we come together as mayors, we get elected, so that means the majority of the people in our community voted for us, and the legislators know that, and they are the ones that take heart to that because they are voted in office as well. So I think when we come together, we have an incredibly loud voice, and we need to come together more often on issues like mental health.
Don't forget, they want your endorsement.
And they want our endorsement, by and large.
Right? Well, thank you so much, mayors. Like I said, you guys are my ride or die.
I have to do a shout out. You know, I have to
shout
do
out.
that.
Go for it.
Don't underestimate your power with the existing programs you work with. Move with the mayor, that program. As we walk together as a community, we talk to each other.
Move with the mayor. You guys
So that's
know that
easy. John is out there
they're
somewhere.
doing great work.
They do great work for you.
And we forget too, because we talk about mental health, but also your physical health can make a huge difference whenever
You can
you're
put them together.
trying to work on your mental health and getting the endorphins going. And so move with the mayor. There you go. There's your new ambassador of Move with the Mayor, Aquanetta Warren. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, mayors. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's see. It says this concludes our opening session. We will be right back after lunch. Thanks, everyone.